For those who hear, let them hear. For those who see, let them see. May the Christ within illumine the world, and know that God is one with thee. Melchizedek, Truth Principle. Do not interpret truth to suit yourself. We thank you for according us this privilege of visiting with you. We trust we shall be able to bring you some note of encouragement as you continue your journey along that spiritual path which leads to the fullness of the great white light. It is not a cumbersome duty in accepting God's spiritual truth. And as we have previously stated, there are times when to all physical appearances you should not be understood nor accepted. That which you read in the Holy Writ is ever enlightening to man of earth, as he applies himself to understand it. Man of earth is prone to make his own interpretations to suit circumstances as they arise, wherein he may be of his own mortal opinion that he is vindicating himself of some wrong. The Holy Writ, or the Scripture as you refer to them, is a textbook of life, God's man life with God, and points the way to enlightenment to mortal man, if he so desires to accept. Many among the mortal congregation, shall I say, deemed it too great a responsibility to bring about the reunification, as it were, to certain mortal or physical inclinations. That is but an appearance of error. When man of earth seeks to interpret any truth to his own liking, regardless of where the truth is found, he is not deceiving his fellow man to the degree that he is deceiving himself. It is within reason that every man of earth shall know and understand his true relationship to God, and it is not necessary for man to refer or resort to printed textbooks. They are an aid. They are an assistance. They help to encourage man until his desire, and when I say his desire, I am speaking of the spiritual desire, when man's spiritual desire becomes illumined, and to the degree that he becomes honest with himself. And because of his honesty with himself, he sees his fellow man in the same light. Then, having found a desire for honesty with himself, he makes certain renunciation to the mortal. As he renounces certain claims and possession to that of the mortal, which has held him from beholding himself the true child of God, he supplants that which he has renounced with the spiritual desire to seek beyond the written page in preparation to read and understand the unwritten law. Where shall he find the unwritten law? Upon the pages of the eternal cosmos. There is no reason for man to endure the darkness of superstition, only as he so desires to remain dependent upon that which expresses darkness. As we have previously mentioned, mortal man is a weakling, and beyond the weakness of mortal limitations lives the spiritual giant. It is not the will of God that man should remain subject to error, and you, dear ones, shall soon have proof that God gives expression through everything that expresses life. You are standing upon the threshold of the open door now, and I believe our statement needs no further explanation. It is for that reason that we continue to admonish with you, dear ones, to abandon every form of emotionalism and become calm and receptive to inspiration of God. Then it shall be, and only then, that you shall be able to turn the pages of the unwritten law. You have them now in consciousness, if you please. For in consciousness, spiritually so, you have never been anything else but a part of God. Emotionalism is physical. It is born from the womb of the five senses. Now remember, dear hearts, there is only one perfection, and that is divine perfection. Try as you will, and let me make it more general, please. Let man of earth try as he may, try as he will, to bring about physical perfection without understanding his spiritual birthright with God. And he but becomes a part of emotional confusion. It cannot be otherwise. There is no confusion in God. Now, let us try to reason with you. Since physical distress to many is a reality, which it is not, but to many it becomes a reality. When the physical distress has reached its highest ebb and causes man all manner of distress and chaos, and some comes to such an individual and says, I too endure that, and the other one says, but you're not enduring it now. No, is the answer. The next question, then how did you overcome it? I sought and found God. Now, let us reason further. If God was confusion, how then in seeking, finding, and knowing God, if God were confusion, could God overcome confusion if God were a part of it? That is not conducive to the common sense logic, is it? God is the perfect idea, and man is his image and likeness. If you were to discover that this dwelling were enveloped in flame or fire, would you undertake to extinguish that fire by starting another fire? I dare say not. Have we not reasoned with you, dear ones? Man can only help his fellow man by refusing to acknowledge confusion and distress. You may be misunderstood by your fellow man, who is not as far advanced as you may be spiritually, because you do not sympathize with his dilemma in which he finds himself. But he or she who becomes adept in applying the law of God listens patiently to all sorrow and all woe, and continues silently to declare, I am no part of it. I see no confusion. God is perfect peace. I am his child, his image and likeness. How is this to help the one who is pouring out their heart of chaos and strife? Are there two of you? But physically so. But you are one spiritually. You are the image and likeness of God. One spirit. The Spirit of God, seeking to express, manifest, radiate through two physical temples. One, the I am consciousness of God. Therefore, in silence you say, I am peace. You are claiming your oneness with perfect spirit, and you are giving no recognition to mortal, or call it physical if you so care, confusion. Why does man become confused mortally? For only one reason, that by way of physical desire, he is reaching forth for something to satisfy a mortal or physical ambition, and it is much more difficult to acquire and never quite as lasting, if you please. As though, in patience, he would say, I am your child, Father. All there is for me to have, you have created. I desire but to claim my rightful own in thee. That is renouncing error and declaring the fullness of the incarnate Christ of which you are. Patience, beloved. Patience and tolerance are handmaidens. They walk down the path of life hand in hand. They are not two separate entities, so to speak. They are one. Now, may I further reason with you, please? Can you turn back the pages in your memory and find where you have made what man has learned to call mistakes? And as you find them, aha, can you say to yourself, what decision did I make when this took place? And how hasty was my decision? Why does a man meet with what he calls unkindness at the hands of those who he reckons as his fellow man? There is no mystery to it. There is no mystery to it. There is an immutable law. God's law is perfect. That is the immutable law of perfection. And there is a law which man in his mortal reasoning establishes, and mortally so, that becomes immutable and sometimes must be met. When man pauses to think upon himself as God's image and likeness with a desire of spiritual guidance and all that which physically confronts him, this shall be his discovery. He may become physically disappointed. But what will happen? A new avenue will open up, and soon that which he has beheld as a physical disappointment shall have vanished into its native nothingness. There are many men and women here on the physical plane of life, and, perchance, you have met with and associated with some of these of whom I am going to speak. Their physical desire of achievement in certain directions so beset them that, may I use the term, that unthinkingly, to make that particular achievement, they attracted to them certain individuals who later on, as the pattern unfolded itself, became traitors. Heartaches, disappointments, all manner of grief. I am speaking of physical attributes, please. Their physical desires for achievement in certain directions so beset them. Their physical desire for achievement in certain directions so beset them that, may I use the term, that, unthinkingly, to make that particular achievement, they attracted to them certain individuals who later on, as the pattern unfolds itself, became traitors, heartaches, disappointments, all manner of grief. I am speaking of physical attributes, please. And yet, when that one, through some particular channel, found God, either through the kindness of a friend or through some other means, they found God, and God said, I behold no mistake. Come, you have placed your hand in the Father's hand now. You have had it there in the beginning, child. But you became physically ambitious and you walked in the night of folly. I tried to speak to you, child, but your ear became deafened to me. You did not hear. You are now back in the Father's house. You have never left it, but in consciousness, you are back in the Father's house. Listen carefully. Do not become physically ambitious. Do not reach for that which is not within your grasp. Reach for it spiritually, my child, and you shall find it within the grasp physically. And when you find it physically, it shall be untarnished. It shall be pure gold and not brass. It shall be a precious pearl. It shall be a flawless diamond. That is the threshold you, dear ones, are standing upon. You now have confidence that there is a God. Mortal man seeks some tangible evidence. That is a mortal requisite. Let me give you happy news. It shall not be too long until you shall have tangible evidence born from the womb of spiritual truth. Guard well that which you now have, for remember, you have it on the inside of the sheepfold, and there is only one door to that sheepfold. No one can climb over the wall, for there is a protection there. He or she who would try to enter the sheepfold by climbing over the wall shall be pricked by their own nettles. One by one, the called and the chosen shall enter the door of the sheepfold, and as they approach that door, it shall not be physical or mortal curiosity. It shall be spiritual desire to become a spiritual part thereof. May I take you to the prayer of the humble Galilean when he said, Our Father in heaven. He did not say, Your Father in heaven. He did not say, My Father in heaven. He said, Our Father in heaven. Man only recognizes God as the universal Father as he ascends in consciousness, annihilating into its native nothingness all prejudice, all tyranny, all strife. Do not weary yourself, dear hearts, that you shall ever become a part of strife and chaos while you hold fast to the realization of your oneness in the wholeness of the eternal oversoul life which man down through the ages have learned to call God. It is only when man takes his eyes from God and becomes emotionally a part of mortal confusion, identifying himself with the physical which is unregenerated, by the lack of regeneration of spirit, that man sinks into a realm of mortal distress and limitation. Man becomes hasty because of mortal desire. Remember an old adage, it is worthy of consideration. Haste makes waste. It is truth. God is ever present, never tardy, and knows no desertion. It is a man in his mortal, unregenerate will separates himself from God. Good night. Thank you.